Oh shoot, my volume's still on. How's that? Hi. I'm trying to share it to my personal page, and I'm like, oh, my volume is still on. I thought I turned it all the way down. But no. How are you this evening, sir?
Good. And how are you?
Thank you so much for joining us here on Paranormal Brew.
Well, thank you for having me.
So everybody that's watching, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. I consider you a friend, even though this is the first time we're seeing each other face to face. But I met you through another very good friend, or three good friends. I've inserted myself as number four to their little posse there,
Mm.
um, but so therefore, I know we've been in chat since or on live, and we've been commenting and stuff. And one day I was just like, I have to have him on.
Well,
I
thank
I,
you
I
very
need,
much. It's an honor.
yeah, I'm very very interested in JD. I mean, you write for Skeptical Inquirer, and I am very, very, very non-educated, knowledgeable of anything that has to do with Satanism or the satanic, anything like that. So I just want to learn. So I just want to hear where you started and how you got, like, how does this being a skeptic, but then also all the other stuff that, I mean, are you a skeptic of the Satanism stuff? Or are you a skeptic of the ghost and then you practice the Satanism stuff? All that.
Sure. So I was always really interested in the occult and the paranormal, um, even when I was like a teenager. And when I first discovered the Satanic Bible, it was so much different than anything else that I had read. Because a lot of the stuff that passes as the occult, metaphysical, and I you can ask Kenny and Dave or Tim. I hate the way that word metaphysical gets applied to anything that's supernatural or paranormal. It's
Right.
very far removed from its original strict usage in philosophy. When I was reading the Satanic Bible, it was a very down to earth, common sense way of talking about magical and occult concepts. It was
Mhm.
acknowledging it more so as there's an element that's applied psychology, and maybe there's an element that is more supernatural or paranormal. We don't know. That's something that we're going to kind of leave open for personal interpretation, and you're not expected to take it as a matter of faith. Whereas a lot of the occult literature historically comes from a very Christian kind of perspective of Abrahamic, because it also incorporates elements of like Jewish mysticism. And with the Satanic Bible and Satanism, it was very, very different. So I was very interested in that. When I went to college, I was very much interested in the idea of taking tarot and alchemy and things like that the psychiatrist Carl Jung was interested in, and trying to apply that. But to my surprise, Freudianism and Jungian psychology isn't really practiced much in mainstream psychology nowadays. So instead, what my education was, it was more empirical testing, the other more evidence based theories in mainstream psychology, and that I became very, very interested in. And by the time I got out of college, I would consider myself a skeptic. At some point along the way, I learned about James Randi. I learned about the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, the organization that publishes Skeptical Inquirer, and I joined the CFI, the Center for Inquiry. So how I kind of circled back around to Satanism was I considered myself an atheist for a very long time, and I happened to kind of pick up the Satanic Bible again one day, and I was reading it years later, and I had a newfound respect for the way in which it was written and the message that it conveyed. And knowing that the elements of Satanism that are more occult or supernatural weren't something that was mandatory. You didn't, there's nothing in the religion that is to be accepted on faith. So to me, I was like, well, I have this idea in my head of what it means to be an atheist and the kind of blind, dogmatic worldview that seeks to stifle curiosity and kind of retard the progress of scientific and technological advancement. And I kind of saw that encapsulated in the metaphorical character of the devil. And it kind of just clicked one day in my head. I was like, this is the perfect way to kind of marry those two things. The symbolism and the fantasy of the fictional character of Satan, and taking back the Hebrew, the root word of the name, which was the accuser, and applying that to the kind of doubt and the kind of questioning attitude that a skeptic has towards claims of the paranormal. So for me, it was very much a marriage of, I don't want to say the two different sides of my personality, but does that make sense? I feel like that was a very long, rambling answer.
No, I get it. So you consider yourself an atheist?
Well, I consider myself a Satanist. So
okay.
So an atheist,
but along the lines, you were an atheist, right? So an atheist, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure, but they don't believe in anything. So they wouldn't believe in Satan. Correct. They wouldn't believe in God. They wouldn't believe in anything.
So Satanism, atheism, calling yourself an atheist, is really just a negative kind of statement. It's referring to what you don't believe in.
Okay.
Whereas Satanism goes a step beyond atheism. So Satanism was codified in 1966 by Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. And it was created as an atheistic religion. It was created as a religion that celebrated the carnal life here on earth instead of encouraging people to delay gratification and submit to a ecclesiastic authority for hope in a world kind of beyond. It's a very individualistic, empowering religion that encourages you to get the most out of life while you can. So there's, it doesn't worship, there's no devil worship. We're not devil worshipers. We don't believe in a literal anthropomorphic Satan. But exactly. But it goes beyond just atheism in that there is an acknowledgement of practicing ritual magic if you want. And I think that might turn a lot of people off, especially if they're coming from an atheistic or a skeptical perspective. But the one thing that I've noticed over the years is there's a lot of effort in the atheist and secular community to create atheist holidays and create some kind of symbol that people can rally behind to kind of replace the cross or replace the Star of David. So I think that there's something about religion and the way it functions in terms of on an emotional level and fraternally in terms of society at large that you kind of miss out on if you only define yourself by what you don't believe in, as opposed to with Satanism, what you're advancing as your highest good and what you most believe in is yourself and your own earthly gratification. And I think that that was something that Anton LaVey was very forward thinking about, that
Mm-hmm.
5 decades later, we still find secularists and atheists kind of coming to the same conclusion and trying to create sort of a religion for the unreligious, you know.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny to me how blindly everybody just automatically thinks that Satanism is this like sacrifice animals, orgies with blood, and want to kill people and animals and and hate
Mhm.
everybody, right? As blindly as a society, the whole world thinks that that's so
Yeah,
bad and terrible.
yeah.
That's the idea of it, right? Whereas, um,
Mhm.
every different religion that judges that, they all have their own beliefs of stuff. Like really, it's really
Mhm.
amazing to me that everybody can blindly just believe that of this and not be. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I want you to explain exactly
Mhm.
what the Satanism is. Not
Yeah.
saying that I'm going to jump ship and I'm going to all of a sudden I'm going to be but um I respect your beliefs and views, and and I think that a lot of people out there just don't understand, myself included. Although I did talk to somebody that is a Satanist, and um he kind of like enlightened me a little bit, but I still had a lot of questions. So from that
Mhm.
point going forward, I didn't look at it the way the rest of society looks at it,
Mhm.
where it's just a different way of thinking. You're worshiping yourself as opposed to worshiping some
Right.
hopefully real person or real
Right.
entity where we're going, and I get that, I understand all that.
Because the insight that Anton LaVey had was, if you're somebody who's an atheist, you already accept the idea that people believe in a God that kind of serves their needs, that represents what they aspire to be or what they consider to be the best kind of in themselves. So his question was, why do we have to externalize that?
Mhm.
Why can't we just kind of cut straight to the chase? The We're the real personification of what we're trying to deify, and kind of have the self confidence to assert that, as opposed to doing it by proxy.
Mhm.
But to your
Right.
point about confusion, that's always been the struggle from day one, is getting the information out there, and more so finding people that are genuinely intellectually honest and curious about it,
Mhm.
as opposed to just kind of accepting what they hear secondhand, or trying to twist things to fit a certain agenda. So one of the things that I write and talk about a lot through my articles or on my podcast is a period of time called the Satanic Panic during the 80s and 90s, when there was a case of, I think it's called mass psychogenic illness now. It's not considered mass hysteria anymore. I guess the preferred nomenclature or politically correct term is mass psychogenic illness. So there was a very widespread belief that rock music had hidden subversive lyrics that were encouraging people to do drugs and worship the devil, and Dungeons and Dragons was a gateway to devil worship. And
I loved playing that game.
right, I've
I
I've
loved
I've
that.
never had enough people to really play in like an interesting, fun campaign, and that's kind of the I guess the bane of not having a lot of friends that are interested in that. And I'm just
Yeah,
terrible
sorry.
at games in general. I have I legitimately have ADD, and I can't sit there and listen to the rules of the game, because by the time somebody finishes explaining to the rules,
You
I'm like,
forget.
I have no idea what you just
Right.
said.
I'm the same exact way.
But the for a while, the kind of consensus among academics and skeptics was that the Satanic Panic had went away. It raged for about a decade or two, and then it subsided. And then around 2016 or so, we had the whole Pizzagate thing, and QAnon came about, and that was around the time that I really started to get involved in the skeptic community, because as soon as Pizzagate happened, I had this, I said to myself, this is the Satanic Panic all over again. I better get ahead of this, or I think it's important that I try to get ahead of this and double down on getting information out there, kind of refuting false claims and making sure that I do my part to fight misinformation, because as a Satanist, it can actively hurt me. It's something that I should take very seriously.
Right. So for people that don't know, including myself, Pizzagate, and then you said QAnon. Can you just kind of, I don't know if Pizzagate's a brief thing, but maybe if you could just say like what that was, for those that.
Yeah. So off the cuff, Pizzagate started around the time that there was the email leak from WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton's emails.
Okay.
And somehow online, I believe it started on the message board 4chan and then moved to Reddit. This kind of conspiracy took shape that George Soros and Hillary Clinton were part of this child abusing satanic cabal.
So the satanic thing was thrown in there.
Yes, explicitly, yeah. Because otherwise it would just be like Jeffrey Epstein, and that would have some degree of truthfulness to it.
They can't just be sociopaths. They have to be
exactly. They can't just be bad people. They have to be some kind of supernatural evil.
Right.
So the idea was that they were using this pizzeria called Comet Ping Pong as, I guess, kind of a stop on the route that they were trafficking these children for. So this individual, and I don't remember his name. I haven't committed a lot of this stuff to memory, and it was a while ago before I did the podcast episode. This individual believed this all to be true and went to the pizzeria with a weapon, thinking that he was going to liberate these imprisoned kids. And of course, he got there and there was no child sex. There were no child prisoners.
Right.
He believed that they were being held in a basement at the pizzeria and that there was a hidden passageway to the basement. The pizzeria had no basement. So Pizzagate, as it came to be known, came and went. And the kind of ideas that stayed at the heart of that ended up mutating into the conspiracy that's known as QAnon. So again, on message board like 4chan, there was an individual posting anonymously under the handle of QAnon Patriot. And from the 2016 election of Donald Trump as president, for several years, the duration of Trump's presidency, this anonymous individual would post these very cryptic messages claiming that they had inside intelligence and making predictions for future events, which ultimately culminated in this belief that there was something called the storm coming, where Donald Trump would kind of pull the curtain back and reveal that he had been leading an organization secretly ferreting out the Satanist child molesters in the government and in Hollywood. And basically these people...
I never heard about this. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, it didn't happen. So yes, right. It is.
No. I mean, like just the story. Like I'm surprised I didn't hear about this.
It's wild. And it's been covered a lot by Skeptical Inquirer, which is really good. Every time I see an article about that, I'm glad that it kind of hasn't gone away.
Right.
Because there's a lot of issues that individuals within the skeptic community kind of make their pet project, I suppose you could say. So that's something that I'm glad the focus hasn't been taken away from, because it's probably what concerns me the most as far as things that we need to do to combat today. But yeah, so supposedly, Donald Trump was going to lead this event called the Storm, and obviously it never happened.
Right.
He's no longer president. So you would think that the ideas would kind of fizzle out. And for a while, people, academics, people who make it their business to kind of study conspiracy theories, debated how it was going to go. And somebody, I forget who it was, but I read an article online. Somebody made a very great comparison to the Millerites, who I believe ended up becoming the Seventh-day Adventists. And the idea was that the founder of the Millerites was somebody who considered himself a prophet. He put forward that the world's going to end on such and such a day. All of my followers are going to be prepared for it. And of course, the day came and went and nothing happened. So then he went back and studied the Bible and redid his calculations and decided, oh, well, I forgot to carry the 5. So this is actually the day that the world's going to end. And of course, the second time came and went, nothing happened. So with the Millerites, you had a certain number of people that kind of dropped off and very tail between the legs were embarrassed about essentially being suckered. On the other hand, you had people that doubled down on their faith and continued to persist in that belief, even though it had been proven wrong twice. So we seem to see the same thing happening with QAnon. Some people have drifted away from the movement and acknowledge now, boy, that was really crazy. I can't believe I got suckered into that. Whereas other people still somehow look for those, what they're called, Q drop. Well, they're called Q drops whenever the person posts.
Cute.
And for about a year, there weren't any. But then recently, another one came back. So now I guess there's renewed hope among the QAnon community.
So they think that he's going to get rid of.
I think they think that he's still somehow going to get reelected, or somehow. I mean, to be fair, they have, unless he goes to prison, they have 2024 to look forward to, and maybe that's how they can rewrite it. As he didn't get to it the first time around, but here's our second chance. We got to make this one count. It's really,
and the goal is to remove the focus on the Satanist people that are within, to get just to get rid of all of them. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's very much. It's interesting because
it's almost like parallel to. It almost sounds parallel to like comparing to like Hitler or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting because when I say interesting, I really mean terrifying, because the kind of extremist far right that QAnon politically aligns itself with, there's a lot of different motivations that people have for joining. So the one article that I recently put out for Skeptical Inquirer kind of addressed this. On the one hand, you have people who come from the QAnon save the children kind of background. But that also overlaps with people who voted for Donald Trump as president and align with or support whatever particular kind of issues, legislative issues that he had. But then you also have a certain subset of people that are specifically interested in a Christian nationalist, white nationalist kind of government. Mm-hmm. So they're involved in various militia movements. And the one group in particular that I wrote my article about, the Order of Nine Angles, they're a very far-right white nationalist group, but they have a very kooky kind of devil-worshipping religion that also comes into play.
But doesn't that kind of contradict what what they maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Well,
Like, does it kind of contradict like what they're trying to remove from society?
well, that's the QAnon folks. But
Oh, okay. So these are
kind of
this is
standing,
opposite.
yeah, they're kind of standing shoulder to shoulder next to these other folks over here. So
Gotcha.
it's interesting how QAnon fits into kind of the larger picture of the political far right in this country.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So and like and then so that goes back to me saying that is scary for because people blindly just believe these negative things about Satanism. I mean,
Mhm.
even there's people that watch my show and I don't know them that well, but like maybe patients that come in my office and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, what's your show on this week?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm having a guy come on. His name's JD Sports. He writes for Skeptical Inquirer, and he's a Satanism." And they're like, "Oh, I'm not watching that. No." It's like, but it's not what you think, and that's why
Mhm.
I have people like you on, because I want people to hear you're not thinking about how to kill their cat and
No,
sacrifice it for, the devil.
no, I
Um,
actually have a cat, and I'm very surprised that she's not in here. Because usually, whenever I do a show or anything, she has to be right up in front of the camera and getting in the way. But
yeah. Let me see. I'm sorry. I was like just catching up. Hi, Ron. It has been left over that appears to be changing history.
I mean, as a quick aside, I would say that's not necessarily true. I mean, I think nobody would disagree that the overturning of Roe v. Wade was a decidedly partisan move and decidedly not on the political left. And that's certainly history making. I mean, for as long as I've been alive, any kind of textbook reading or anything that was taught in school or college, it was one of those, oh, Roe v. Wade. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was like 1960 something. Other.
True.
Anyway,
So,
just a,
I'm curious, and you may have said this, and I'm sorry if you did, but how old were you? And
looks like we briefly dropped out.
oh, we did. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're back.
Okay, good. um, you said that at one point you read the Satanic Bible, and then years later you picked it up again. Originally, you might have said this, and I apologize again. What was the reason? Were you just curious?
So the way that I came through it is probably it's pretty cliche. I was a big metalhead. I was really big into like Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, and I remember having this collection of Black Sabbath on CD, and in the liner notes, it told the story about the first time Black Sabbath came to America. There was this like a parade in their honor led by the Black Pope, founder of the Church of Satan, which it turns out that story's not true at all. If anything, I think it's taking two different events and kind of mashing them together, almost like a Mandela effect kind of memory.
Okay.
But reading that, I was fascinated at the idea that there was a Church of Satan. Like what was that about? And
Now,
who
prior
was
to this,
this
though,
guy?
were you like raised in a religious household? Like, were you like, was anybody around you like Catholic, Christian?
Not that bad. No, not that bad. I honestly can't really complain. It's not like I had a very strict kind of religious upbringing or
Hmm.
anything like that. I was raised Christian brethren when I was little, um, and then at some point, my parents stopped going to church because of the typical kind of political. Um, I don't know if you allow cursing on your show, but
Yeah, go
bullshit
ahead.
that goes along with church. And so I had a belief in God and all that, but it wasn't something that was drilled into me or anything like that. And in
Right.
fact, I remember at some point when I was still going to church, I remember my mom telling me the story about how the devil used to be like God's most favorite angel, Lucifer, and he got a little too arrogant and power hungry and fell from grace and all that. And that story fascinated me. So I always had a fascination with the weird and the strange. And
And
when I
and
found,
to be clear, you don't believe any of that.
no,
Right. So you believe that Satan is a fictional thing.
yes, yes, absolutely. I'm not making the epistemic assertion that I know that, but I
No, no,
think
no.
it's
Right. No,
very,
what you believe, right? So that, but that's
very,
Satan.
very, very unlikely.
But that's Satanism, right? So, but a lot, like I said, everybody thinks Satanism is just you automatically worship the devil. Like,
Mhm.
he exists and you worship the devil and da da da. That's that.
Now, I mean, there are people that call themselves theistic Satanists,
What is
and
it? What is the first word?
theistic.
Theistic. Okay.
So they'll call themselves that, or academics writing about Satanism as a religion will try to say that Satanism is something that has many different subdivisions. So, on the one hand, you have the atheistic Satanists, and that's the Church of Satan. And on the other hand, you have theistic Satanists. And that's something that I personally reject. I don't think that it doesn't work in the same way that, say, for example, you might say Catholics and Protestants are both
Okay.
Christian,
Okay.
or Shia and Sunni are both Muslims, because they have a shared scripture, a shared founder. They have a kind of common history, literature, and beliefs. And that's just not true for people who legitimately believe that the devil is a real person. Satanism was created as a religion, as a formal organized religion in 1966, and it was created as an atheistic religion. So you can't call yourself a Satanist who believes in the devil. You're just a heretical Christian. You have the exact same beliefs as a Christian. You're just choosing to root for the other team.
Right. That was great. That's perfect. That was great. That was such a good analogy. But like, and that's the thing. So it's almost as if like, oh, well, no, you're saying it's not the same. It's not the same as if like everybody was a Satanism, but then they broke off because they wanted to believe in the devil. Like
They try to claim that. I mean, they try to claim that, but it's not true. It just doesn't work like that, because there's not a shared. Even
right.
if you have groups that will acknowledge Anton LaVey as kind of the guy that made Satanism possible as a religion, they don't consider him. They want to distance themselves from him for their own reasons. There's something about Satanism that they consider unpalatable. So they want to say, well, we're Satanists, but we're not like those kind of Satanists. And we're Satanists, but we don't like that guy because he was old and kind of a sexist. And, you can't call yourself a Christian and not follow Jesus, or, not
Right.
believe that Jesus was Christ. It doesn't work like
Right.
that.
Right. Right. So those are the theoristic. That's what they call themselves.
Yes, theistic Satanists. And I mean, there's not like a formal organization of theistic Satanists. It's more
Well,
of
I mean,
a
but society doesn't allow it, right? I mean, could you imagine? I mean, do you remember? Oh my God, do you remember when they were Harvard? I think it was going to allow um, for that satanic mass,
mhm.
and the Pope came on TV and said, while they're doing their satanic mass, we're going to be doing our hour. I want everybody around the world to do an hour of prayer while they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And it was like the last second, you know, they called it off. And I remember then, that's when I was, you know, I told you prior to that, like I felt the way everybody else felt, you know, like, oh my God, like they're going to summon the devil and he's going to come to earth. And you know what I mean? Like we're going to burn, you know, like, just, I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean? Like I was like totally freaked out about it, you know, and I think that's just society drills it into people's head. Like it doesn't matter what religion you are. Like if you know, anytime anybody's like, if anybody knew that, or you were voiceful about your beliefs, you know what I mean? People are like, oh my God, he's got bad juju. I don't want to stand next to him. You know what I mean? Like it's, and that's the sad part, is that, you know, it's nothing what anybody thinks.
It's one of those, the truth is kind of scarier than the fiction.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, people suck. So, I mean, to like worship ourselves, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, okay, Superman.
Well, and I mean, unabashedly so.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with that comes holding yourself to a certain kind of standard, because if you believe that the universe is totally indifferent to what goes on in your life, there's nobody that's looking out for you or taking your best interests into consideration, then all the responsibility is on you to make the most of the situation and to work towards whatever your goals and your desires are. And that's a lot of responsibility that most people, you know, can't really handle. I mean, I've had a couple, not as many as some people, but we'll get unsolicited messages and emails from mostly, I have to be honest, mostly underdeveloped countries, people asking basically, how can I, you know, join the Church of Satan and get rich and famous and fuck everybody that I want, you know.
Well, because they watch Lucifer on ABC.
Exactly. And then, you know, unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. You gotta put in the hard work. And you have to think about it. Even if the devil was real, what makes you he would be interested in, you know, doing anything for somebody that is like a complete loser and failure at life, you know? Wouldn't he demand, I mean,
the theory behind that is that, you know, that he feeds off of that. That's what feeds, you know what I mean? All the negative feelings you have, you know, so it's like, well, if I'll trade my soul, or I'll give you me if you give me what I want. Like, well, this is what I want, you know, when really, you know, you're no better.
And I think that goes back to the kind of guilt mentality that comes with a certain brand of Christianity.
Yes.
And when Anton LaVey founded the Church of Satan and codified Satanism, it was very much a reaction to that kind of lifestyle. And it's important to note when this took place, too. This was in the late 60s. So it was right on the cusp of the kind of new age boom that was taking place with the flower power movement and the hippies. There was a lot of interest in yoga, Eastern mysticism. You know, the Beatles were hanging out with the Maharishi and stuff. So Anton LaVey came along with Satanism and basically said, instead of being ashamed of those kind of negative feelings and those negative affectations, how can we turn that into something that's more positive and more self-affirming, instead of denying the imperfect animal nature of man? And that's part of the reason why the devil in particular was chosen as kind of the symbol that best represented the religion, was because on the one hand, you have the popular depiction of this kind of half human, half animal creature. You know, you have the lower half that's like a satyr with cloven hooves. You have the horns. So it's a symbol that takes all these different ideas and kind of combines them into one. You have the kind of angelic nature with reason and using the faculty of reason and imagination to aspire to do things, to create. And then on the other hand, you have the very carnal animal nature that represents instincts and desires that are often considered base. And instead of trying to suppress the one and deny it in favor of the other, why not celebrate both?
Yeah. This is interesting. So what do you what are your views on the Roman Catholicism, in Italy and stuff like this and that, where they teach exorcisms and, the history of exorcisms, like, what do you think that's a person? Do you think that that's the person doing that to themselves? Do you think it's, you know,
I think in some cases there are individuals that have legitimate mental health issues that
mhm,
are misdiagnosed. And that's something that the Catholic Church too will acknowledge and acknowledges as being very keen to suss out before they come to the conclusion that it's a genuine case of demonic possession.
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
in other cases, there's kind of an interesting interplay between the possessed and the exorcist and the families and the friends around. I don't want to use the word psychodynamic, but I think there's an interesting interplay that's almost like theatrical. You have somebody taking cues, and I think this operates in some degree on a subconscious level. I don't think people are necessarily consciously faking it, but
Mhm.
they take cues from their environment and they take cues from things that other people tell them and kind of tailor their behavior around that. It's kind of like I can't think of it, the placebo effect. It's kind
Yeah,
of like
yeah,
the
yeah.
placebo effect where the power of the belief is so strong that it can manifest in behavior and it can manifest in things like rashes, things like that. And then I think on kind of say this is like the minority of cases. I think sometimes people fake their possession,
Mm.
and I think sometimes people fake their possession, and I think the exorcists fake. Uh, well, I don't know if I'd say fake what they're doing. And particular, I'm thinking of like Bob Larson. I've written a little bit on Bob Larson before, and I'm kind of on the fence as to whether or not he genuinely believes what he's doing. I've seen several of his exorcisms, and I definitely get the impression that the people that he is performing these exorcisms on are, in some cases, taking their cues from him and what he
Mhm.
does and what he says. You'll see them kind of relax and take it back a notch, and then Bob will do or say something else that basically sends the message that we're not done here. This exorcism is going to go on, and you'll see the behavior ramp back up in response to that. Whether or not Bob genuinely believes that he's casting demons out of these people, or he's just doing it for attention and for money. I honestly don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. It's something that every time Kenny and I watch one of his exorcisms, we have a kind of, I don't want to say an argument, but I think Kenny leans more towards Bob is making it up,
Mhm.
and I'm more, I don't know. He might genuinely believe it.
Like, he might believe what he's doing.
Right. Right.
Right.
Even if the people aren't genuinely
Right.
possessed and the people are feeding off of his doing what they're doing in response to what he's doing, I'm not sure that Bob doesn't believe that these people are actually possessed.
Well, and then that can also help increase what they're experiencing. Like, if they
Mhm.
have this priest that just, automatically just believes, or
Hmm.
is believing what they're going through.
Right.
I feel like that also then too could cause that, that thought process to, kind of make yourself be worse than what you
Hmm.
are for whatever you're going through. You know what I mean?
And I will throw out a just to show what a good sport I am. I will throw out a compliment to the Vatican in that, at the very least, if you're going to continue the message that possessions are real and demons exist, and I think at this point they have to. I think if the Catholic Church were to kind of give up the belief in the devil and demons, the whole game's up. They wouldn't have anything left, to stand
Right.
on. If you're going to do that, at the very least, they offer kind of criteria for judging people and dealing with those kind of situations. Whereas I've seen videos of just your average Joe Blow uh, ghost hunter group, pretty much,
Yeah.
that
Right.
will perform exorcisms on people in their home, unsupervised, and they can get physical and hands on, and that's very, very, very dangerous. It doesn't take much to do a Google search for news stories about people, children that are killed during these exorcisms
Yes.
because of the kind of uh, physical restraints or beatings or exposure to the elements that goes on. So at the very least, I will say I think the Catholic Church has acknowledged what kind of a risky business exorcism is and how it can very quickly kind of backfire and draw negative attention to them. So they're very, very careful. They seem to be very, very careful in how they train their priests. So I think
Yeah.
we have more to worry about from amateur exorcists than we do, I guess, Vatican approved exorcists.
Yeah. Because like you said, I mean, you really got to prove some shit in order for them to,
Mhm.
acknowledge that, yes, this could be something. So we're going to take care of it, or
Mhm.
we're going to try anyway. And that's so true. And I mean, and that is the thing. And that's the problem is that, I had Jay Halls on. Now, to me, Jay Halls is, I, I love him. I think he's, you know, uh, I think he's awesome. I think he's very level grounded. He's not
Mhm.
everything's, and he came on and said, it's so like, if at all, it's so rare in my how many years of doing this. It's like, demons, like, no, never. Like, so for people
Mhm.
to actually be in this field and doing that, and not to come across it, but yet, you know, it's on every show. It's like just
Mhm.
automatically, I mean, even the
Well, I would,
Ouija board,
I
even
would,
the
I would
Ouija board gets a bad rap wrapped up all up in there with, um, and that's not even. I had Brandon Hodge on last week, and he talked about the Ouija board, and he's like a historian and all this research about the Ouija board and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's like people put this stuff in there because unfortunately, this is what makes them money, and people
Oh
go with
yeah.
it. These people on YouTube, they're trying to make money and they're trying to get big and they're trying to, you know what I mean? And so people are doing
Mhm.
things, and it's making, like, how unfair is it that you can't, I mean, honestly, like, coming on here, I'm so happy you came on. You know what I mean? Because I really feel like it
Right.
needs to be educated to people. So people don't think it's such a horrible thing. Yes, if you're Catholic, you don't think you should worship anybody but God. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Mhm.
when you look at it as a, but you can't look at it as like a devil thing. Like, it's got to be, okay, well, we don't agree because we think you're supposed to worship God, and you think you worship yourself. Like, and that's that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're not sacrificing and doing, it's not what you see on TV and movies. And
No.
everybody just blindly believes that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Um,
I agree. I think a lot of people get excited when they when they think they're possessed or have attachments, I just don't believe it for some. I know there was a video I watched, and a girl, all of a sudden she held this like doll or something, and looks up and she's like all of a sudden acting crazy, and I'm like, is this for real? People really believe this? And that was like a bad one. Like you could tell they were acting. And people were
Right.
writing comments like, "Oh my gosh, is she going to be okay? Keep us updated." And I'm like,
Yep.
I feel like people really believe this stuff.
There was a TikTok's, I think, kind of the new frontier for paranormal related videos and content. And
Yeah.
I saw one the other day where it was a room full of dolls, and the video allegedly is showing these dolls, moving every time the person, and it's supposed to be really creepy. And you can tell that in some cases it's time lapse. You can look at the shadows and you can see the shadows move, and you know that it's time lapse and that it's faked. And going into the comments is just an exercise in like self torture, because you see people that just absolutely swallow it, and you're like, how can you not tell that this is fake? It's so obvious.
I know.
Yes,
And,
Zach Baggins always believes he's possessed.
and honestly, people
Zach
just don't go
Baggins
around.
alone is the ultimate proof.
He's what?
I think Zach Baggins is the ultimate proof that demons aren't real. Because if Zach Baggins was getting possessed all the time, like he supposedly is, then everybody in the world should believe in demons, because they should be like every few
Everybody
feet.
should
It should be like you throw a rock. Exactly. You throw a rock, you hit a demon.
Right.
And, I have Ouija boards in my bedroom on my walls. I obviously, am a member of the Church of Satan. I have the sigil of Lucifer tattooed on my body. I've basically done everything that I can to try to open myself up to whatever kind of energies are out there, and I'm still unmolested. And I'm very much like Kenny, in the sense that if there was something out there that could possess people, come take me. I'm yours. And wouldn't that be a sight to see? We would have proof. I mean, maybe I would be convinced. I don't know. I guess it would depend on if I got out of my, got control of my body back. But I would love to see proof of demons or anything supernatural or paranormal. Just because I'm a skeptic doesn't mean that I completely have that door closed. It's just, it's going to take more than Zach Baggins weeping and trying to choke himself on TV to convince me.
So it's fair to say that you're saying, like, you're not totally you're not totally shutting out the idea of.
I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't live my life under the assumption that it could be real. I don't try to like protect myself from things like curses or demons. But I can't make the epistemic claim that I know that there's no such thing.
So
I don't have those.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I don't have that kind of omniscience, but I think that the probability that it's real is very, very, very small, just based on how the world would have to work for that to be true.
So now I see, and like, I want to agree. However, but I mean, like, I want to agree in the sense that it's not what people make it to be. Like on the shows and on the YouTubes and everywhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I believe in a higher power. So and I feel like if I believe in that, then I have to believe that there's got to be this, like this good and evil. Like, you know what I mean? And so, but not in the sense of how TV makes it. Like, where the fuck was I going with that? I had like this really awesome point to make, and then my ADD told me, Just
Well,
kidding.
I've never understood why demons would bother the people that they do. Like, what
Oh no, it's the same.
what grand infernal plan does it serve to possess Zach Baggins, every other day? Like, I don't understand.
Because he's so important, JD.
He's gonna win all these other people over to the dark side.
I was gonna say, so you could go back. I've been doing this over 5 years. You could go back on all my shows. I've always said it. I'm so bad at doing protection before. I don't do it. I like, and I'm sure everybody I know that investigates cringes every time I say that, but I just don't. It's not that I don't do it out of like, oh, I'm,
Hmm.
purposely not do. I forget. Like I don't do it.
Hmm.
Like I've never done it, and I have been investigating places for so long, so many different types of places, asylums and prisons, and you know Gettysburg and all kinds of
Hmm.
stuff. And knock on wood, because I am superstitious. I will say that I'm been fine,
Hmm. And I
and
think,
I haven't done that. On the
right.
other hand, I mean, like, and this was somebody that I 100% trusted. I mean, like, when I say 100%, 100%, I saw them go through something that I saw a change and a difference and saw
Hmm.
like things happen that I can't explain,
Right.
and they definitely weren't. Now, could it have been in their mind? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Maybe. I mean, because the mind's a powerful thing. I agree with you.
Hmm.
If a woman can, I say this all the time too, if a woman can convince herself she's pregnant and actually have all the physical signs and symptoms of being pregnant, but she's not,
Hmm.
you know, or vice versa. I knew somebody that went a month, over 9 months, went to the hospital because she thought she had a kidney stone and popped out a
Hmm.
7-pound baby. She had no idea she was pregnant.
Right. Right.
So if your mind can do that, like there's not, I don't think there's nothing that your mind can't do.
Hmm.
And I'm a believer in spirits. Like I'm a believer that I'm communicating with, when I go to
Hmm.
Gettysburg and I'm like, are you from Pennsylvania? And I get an EVP that says no, Maine. I believe that that's like a soldier that was there. You know what I mean? Like I do believe in that stuff. Do I think everything is paranormal? Absolutely not.
Right.
You
And I
know what
think
I mean?
that's the and I think that's the important difference is, when you acknowledge that you had this experience that you couldn't explain, I feel like that's kind of all that you can say about it is I can't
Right.
explain it. Because as soon as
Give it a label or a title.
I saw a ghost or something like that, well then you've explained it. So it wasn't really unexplained or something that you couldn't explain. And um, and I'll also say when you mentioned about there's nothing that the mind can do, that kind of calls to mind, uh, even if there was phenomena that couldn't be explained and seemingly violated the laws of physics, objects moving on their own or something like that.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it would be ghosts or demons either.
Right. No, no,
It
no.
could
I
also
know.
be, parapsychological powers or PK or
Absolutely.
if Dave Schumacher's watching this episode, he's probably sitting there thinking like, no, that's not the word, JD. You fucked it up. But, like I think I think sometimes it kind of reveals more about the person that is making a claim when they present what they consider to be the explanation as opposed to what it says about the actual event itself. If somebody thinks something is a ghost versus somebody thinks something's a demon or
Mhm.
that something
And
is.
people do that. People think that. People think
Mhm.
that what I do, and I'm just paranormal investigating, they think that I'm demon
Mhm.
chasing, and I'm
Mhm.
asking to be, taken over by the devil. I mean, they think it's
Especially
horrible.
on shows, like the phenomena is very interchangeable. I
Yeah,
don't really. It's I don't understand where people tend to draw the line, and I really don't think that there is one between. Well, what is a ghost? How does a ghost behave, and how does a demon behave?
right.
What
I know.
motivates a ghost to do this versus a demon?
Yeah. And I use that a lot with private cases. And like I said, I've had like 6 or 7 cases that come my way. I haven't had to do an investigation because people call and they see what they see on TV.
Mhm.
So they oh, something tried to push me down the steps, is trying to kill me. It must be a ghost or demon or whatever. I said, listen, let me tell you something. If something wants to push you down the steps that you can't see, you're going down the steps. Plain and simple. You can't. There's no defending yourself. If it wants you to go down the steps, you're going. And that's the truth. I mean, like, and I said, I always say, like, the Patrick Swayze thing, when, in Ghost, when he's in the subway trying to kick the can over and over again, and then he uses all of his energy and the can goes flying across the subway, right? I mean, we don't know what we're dealing with. We call it this because we're humans. Human nature, we have to label everything, So who knows? Yeah. I mean, the universe is endless. You have no idea. I mean, obviously, I will drink, but energy exists in all forms. You know what I mean? So who knows? I mean, I do believe in people that have passed over, that they can still be. I feel like we're all connected. Still, we're connected somehow, and so I believe if they're an asshole here, they're going to be an asshole there. I don't think that that changes. So yeah, you could probably get one that feels like it's not nice.
You don't believe in like an Ebenezer Scrooge or a Jacob Marley kind of scenario?
No. No, although the movie Scrooged with
Bill Murray.
Oh my God, that was amazing. That would have been cool.
Yeah, I'm partial to the Muppets Christmas Carol myself.
So when you die, what do you think happens? Nothing?
I think maybe you get, a kind of phantasmagoric hallucination as your brain processes your death throes, and maybe there's something like your life flashing before your eyes, or people seeing a vision of going to a higher realm, or hell, or something analogous to that. But I think that it's probably just the power of imagination. I mean, I'm somebody, it's interesting because I'm somebody that's always kind of had experiences with altered states of consciousness. So I'm somebody that's had experiences with sleep paralysis, being in kind of weird half awake, half asleep states. And I've always kind of felt like when you're dreaming and when you're hallucinating and when you're like imagining something, those are all somehow almost like differences of degree versus kind. And I, may or may not have had altered states of consciousness induced by certain substances, which were perfectly legal. And just being able to experience that and realize, if I do something as simple as eat the wrong thing, or, eat something that I wasn't designed to eat, I can, like, my experience of the world can change, even though it's only going on in my brain.
Right.
So personally, I think that that's most likely what happens. I don't, I don't see how the kind of neurochemical, electrical symphony that makes up consciousness could exist once the body shuts down and stops working. And I don't believe in a concept like a soul. I don't know what that would consist of. I don't know where it would reside. So yeah, I pretty much believe when death comes, that's good night, Irene.
Whew. Do you know how many nights I stayed up, like when I was like 10 years old, like so scared of that? Like, I'm like, oh my God, like,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable, but I mean, like, it's it's a very, and I, and sometimes I sit there and I think, believe me, my brain is insane. I am a believer, you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
I, I, I challenge that every day. I think about things like, I'm like, you know, what if, what if that's that, like, what if, you know, what I'm hearing is my brain's making me hear that. I do know that the mind's a powerful thing, and
Mhm.
it's, I don't think we're ever going to have the answers, and I'm fine with that, because if we had the answers, this is a passion of mine, and I think I would lose it,
Right.
and this is what makes me happy. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And that's the. I mean, to some extent, I think that's kind of the most important thing. You know, people should have the freedom to believe in what they want, as
exactly.
long as it provides happiness and gives them some sort of comfort.
Right.
Just keep it to yourself respectfully.
And you know what? And being a Satanist, it's not morally wrong. You're not hurting anybody. You're not hurting anything. It's just you love yourself. Like, you look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, motherfucker, you got it going on. Let's do this.
I mean, that is the most, the one of the, the cornerstones of Satanism is the idea of vital existence over spiritual pipe dreams. The idea that if death is kind of final, you know,
Mhm.
that is very scary. And I kind of don't believe when people say, "Oh, I don't have any kind of fear of that," just because I feel like the idea of your consciousness kind of ceasing to exist,
It's scary as shit.
it's existentially terrifying, and it just
Mhm.
boggles, it defies comprehension.
Right.
Because literally anything that you can think about or conceive of requires consciousness to
Right.
think about. And the idea of that kind of being the end is, you just can't process it.
Right.
But I
So
think,
and that's the thing. Like, and then I say that to myself. That's where I was going with that. Like, I say that to myself because I go, so maybe then all this is made up just to make us feel better
mhm,
about the inevitable. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
because I think about people that they go to the doctors, and my God, my heart goes out to them. They get these terminally ill diagnoses where, okay, you have 6 months to live. Like, if you knew that, like, going through that, like, it would be like horrible. And,
mhm,
and like, so I feel like, you make this, I feel like sometimes, like, in my head, I'm always like, okay, so what if this is just something to, like, make us feel better? And I'm like, okay, but then there was a Bible written. Okay, but that was man-made. It was written by a man, and it was passed down. Like, who knows what stories are, so I do this I flip-flop in my brain all the time about it. All the
right,
time.
right,
And my grandmother was Catholic. So I'm always like, am I gonna go to hell now because I'm, like, doubting, that goes in my head, and I'm like, well,
mhm,
okay, the God that I would know wouldn't make me go to hell, because, yeah, I'm just, it's constant.
right, yeah.
Do you go through that still, or are you like, you're good?
No, I'm I could not believe in a god if I tried.
Okay.
You know, I believe that some people are made in such a way that they cannot believe.
Do you believe in the story of Jesus? Like, do you believe, like, that happened, and, like, but people maybe have exaggerated it, or are you like, no?
I mean, I think it's possible that he was a real person, but we don't have any firsthand accounts of his life. The earliest accounts that we have were at least easy 100 years after his death.
Mhm.
So, you
Well, he was,
know,
like, technically the first ghost story.
well, I mean,
Died and came back, you know?
in ancient, in ancient uh, Greece, they had ideas about ghosts and things like that, but the the kind of ghost that Jesus is a
Right.
very unique kind of weird,
Yeah.
There's the whole Trinity, and he's both the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. He's both divine and human at the same time. He both died and did not die because he's divine. Very, very bizarre.
But I don't believe in organized religion. Just say I don't believe in any I don't believe in organized religion. It's all man-made. I don't believe in man-made religions. You know what I mean? And I mean, my grandmother.
It's one of those cases of being, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not trying to use, being spiritual rather than religious.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I would say that. That's a fair statement. And like as I say, it's like, okay, so my whole life, and I'm sure for like centuries prior, and I'm not saying that this, I feel like people, it's your body, your choice. You do what you want, whatever. But for the Pope to accept gay marriage all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like for centuries and centuries, no.
Yeah.
That was like, you go to hell, and that was just how they think, and for that to be, I'm like, how can the Pope just change that? Like, that's
how did you get that wrong?
You're rewriting the Bible just like you're rewriting the Constitution. It's like the same type of, like you can't.
Well, except the Constitution was designed to be amended.
Right. No. But I know, but I'm just saying, like, you're right. But I'm saying, like, historically,
right.
You're rewriting something that's not supposed to be rewritten.
Well, especially for the kind of claims that, the Pope makes for himself, or the Catholic Church makes for the Pope. The relationship is supposed to be one-on-one. The Pope is God's representative on earth. The Pope has the direct hotline to Yahweh. So how could the Pope get something wrong? And if the Pope gets something wrong, what chance does anyone else have?
He's like this. The Pope was like, hold on a minute, guys. I'm texting
exactly. Now he just text messages,
I'm texting JC. Hold on. Oh no, it's cool. Two bros can get married. It's cool. But, and I'm not mocking any religion. I'm just saying, like, that to me was because like I said, my grandmother was very Catholic, very devout Catholic. Mm-hmm. My mom, she originally was, and then she said, F the Catholics, because stuff happened in her life that she couldn't make sense of, and how they would be the way that is. So she was like, no, I don't. So she was religious. My mom wasn't, but my grandmother would turn over in the grave right now. If you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, gay marriage is okay. And that's not because she doesn't, it's not because she thinks that that's bad. It's because that is religiously, that's not supposed to happen.
Right.
And, so it's just, and that's why I'm not a organized religion / man-made anything like that. I don't agree with it. And, I am very thankful that you came on, and I you know what? An hour just isn't long enough, obviously. I wanted to ask you one more thing.
Sure.
Your family, how do they feel? And the other thing. So do most people recognize your tattoo? Do they know what it is?
Most people don't see it.
Okay. Now, do you do that? Is that on purpose?
Well,
if I ask you anything that's uncomfortable, just say I plead the fifth.
No.
I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat. I'm just saying this is foreign to me. Right. You know what I mean? So
originally I wanted to get it on the back of my hand, and my wife talked me out of it. And I don't think it was because, she was afraid people would see it, because few people would recognize it, first of all. Maybe they would ask, and then, I would have to do kind of the mental calculus of, do I think I can come up with a convincing story fast enough to tell them versus just tell them the truth of what it is. And I think she just said, it's right, it's here on my chest. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to do the Superman.
No, I know. No. I'm not saying to show it, but I mean,
I think she just thought it would look better there. What was the original?
I just meant you're at the beach.
Oh,
You know what I
Well,
mean? Like, do people
I
do
mean,
you
no.
feel like do you feel
Very few
like a
people recognize, like very few people recognize based like that, like very few people will see the tattoo, but like I wear
right.
like a pendant or something along those lines, and occasionally some people will recognize that, or they'll have questions about it. Like the other day I was at the checkout at the grocery store, and this person came up and they were like, hey man, is that the Church of Satan, man? And I was like, yes. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And we had a little conversation about it, but it didn't really go anywhere. So
Yeah.
I managed to fly under the radar uh, a good bit.
Yeah, but that's not fair that you have to do that.
Well, I mean, I look at it as I'm old enough and kind of mature enough that I can decide whether it's prudent for me to hide who I am, or to what degree can I kind of be open about it. And if
So
I was somebody that was definitely going to be beating the drum and kind of throwing it in people's faces, that's not necessarily that's not satanic if it's hurting me,
right.
if it's putting me at a disadvantage. So it's something where I'm more relaxed and open about it if I'm comfortable. Um, if it's in a situation where I think it'd be more prudent to kind of go incognito, I'll do that. We refer to it as tucking the Baphomet, just and you're all good.
Oh, right. Um so does your wife have the same beliefs?
No, she's strictly atheist.
Okay.
She
So
likes a
but
lot of
they're
like
somewhere along the lines. So she's not like a Catholic in your Satanism. You
no,
know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. So okay,
no.
so she can I mean I can kind of see how because you don't believe in Satan, you don't believe in God. You know what I mean?
I
So I
mean,
guess I can see how that
I've heard of Satanists that have Christian spouses, and
oh,
I've always kind of wondered like, how does that work? But no, like
right.
I'm pretty fortunate in that she doesn't have any kind of strongly held religious
Right. So
conviction.
she's like, okay, you do whatever you want. It's cool.
Pretty much, I think she thinks there's some things about it that are a little silly, but that's okay.
And then now, do you have children? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be personal, but I just want to know like, okay, so
I have a
is it
child.
open?
I have a daughter.
So do you leave it open for them to say, okay, I want to do what I want to do, or are you kind of like instilling, the beliefs there, as any parent would? I mean, no, there's
Right.
no, it's not a wrong answer, but I
Right.
mean,
I mean, there's no real beliefs to instill except free thought. So the most satanic way to parent would be to just let
let
your
them,
kids have the freedom to explore and learn about different religions. And I think that openness in its own way is satanic, in the sense that very often you get uh, an unwillingness to present other people's religions as something that's possible. You
right,
approach something from either a Christian worldview or a Muslim worldview. And it's unspoken that everybody else has got it wrong, but it's kind of implicitly assumed, that you and your family are the ones that got it right, and everybody else is a little confused.
right,
Um, so, I mean, it hasn't come up a whole lot. Uh, I don't make any kind of like I have paintings and I have a flag outside my house that has um, the Church of Satan sigil and everything on it. So it's not like a secret or anything. It's just I don't think my kid's there yet that they've picked up on it and
right,
are asking questions.
right. Hmm, that's interesting. And
But I mean, when they do, I'll answer as frankly and candidly as I can, and just
yeah.
present it as some people believe this, and this is what Daddy believes, and this is what Mommy doesn't believe. I guess being an atheist, it's easier to say what you don't believe.
Right, right, right. Do you sometimes, because of the belief behind Satanism, do you think some people mistake that for being selfish? Have you
In
ever
what
been
way?
told that it's
I
selfish?
mean,
Well, because you're like, how's this going to
in what
benefit?
way?
You're like, you're.
Oh, I mean,
I think most people, like you said, most people are like that. That it's true, but I mean, like you're. It's more like, this is you. This is about you.
right. I mean, I think it's absolutely selfish, and I don't. I think that comes down to understanding selfishness to mean something other than kind of
What?
a brute egoism where you do whatever you want and consequences be damned. Devil take the hindmost. With Satanism, it's more about rational selfishness. Understanding that whether you like it or not, you're born into a community with certain kinds of rules and social norms and laws. And, if you want to live as an outlaw and engage in criminal acts or otherwise make yourself a nuisance to your fellow man, that's your choice, but there's going to be consequences. More than anything, the satanic conception of nature, human nature, is kind of action and reaction.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
you can't just do whatever you want and get away with it. There's going to be consequences. So we would prefer to live as part of a society with a social contract where we deal with each other as we hope to be treated, as we expect to be treated. And if we're not treated that way, if the kindness is not reciprocated, we don't consider there to be any kind of compulsion to continue to deal with that person.
Mhm.
If you are a jerk to me, I don't have to turn the other cheek. In making a nuisance of themselves, then you know they should expect to be dealt with.
Wow, it sounds like I would fit right in. I didn't even know. Like I said at the beginning of my show, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not having you on as a convert or anything like that, but
And yeah,
but
we're not interested. We are not interested in converting people. We
right.
believe that Satanists are born and not made. So the one thing that most Satanists will say is when they explain the religion and talk to people, the response they get is, "Wow, that's kind of how I've always believed things, or how I've always treated people." Because it's a
Right.
very practical, pragmatic, common sense kind of approach to life and to dealing with people.
Mhm.
Uh, I know that kindness is supposed to be a virtue, and turning the other cheek is supposed to be something to aspire to. But I think most people deep down kind of think to themselves, well, why do I have to do that? Like, why
Right.
do I have to be the bigger person when it puts me at a disadvantage?
I'm totally that way. I get yelled at all the time. Like, why do you? I'm like, if they disrespect me, I am going to let them know how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and then that's it. They get cut off. You know what I mean?
It,
But
it it's the Patrick Swayze rule: be nice until it's time to not be nice.
mhm,
You know, and that's
absolutely.
something that takes wisdom and maturity to realize. A lot of people when they first get into Satanism, especially if they're younger people, they had this attitude of, you know, I have to be like fuck religion and fuck Christianity and, hail Satan, and make a big show of it and be very antagonistic. And you get that a lot with atheists too. There's a certain kind of sexiness in being very antagonistic towards people that was popularized by folks like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and their approach to dealing with religious folks. And, it comes to a point where you kind of have to realize that that's juvenile, and it's also just not productive. It's a waste of your time, and it really doesn't convince anyone had their mind changed that way. And it also just ends up in it kind of makes you just look like a dick. It doesn't impress anybody except maybe like-minded folks. So all in all, it's just not a good way to behave.
No, and it also puts like this really bad I don't know what word I want to look for, but again, it just feeds what the majority of the society has already blindly believed what Satanism is. You know what I mean? If you're acting like an asshole, you know what I mean? Like people just automatically think that, and it's unfair. I think it's so unfair. Like I feel like you should be able to.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's one of the big. Sorry, you keep cutting out. So I'm not.
Oh no!
Trying to interrupt you. It's just
no. You're not.
To tell where the conversation is.
You're not interrupting.
Okay. So I'm gonna assume that I'm still coherent, and I'm just gonna say, that's one of the things that irks me personally when I see certain political activist groups doing these kind of publicity stunts with the statues and with doing the black masses and everything to kind of tweak the noses of Christians under the guise we're going to acknowledge that they have the freedom of religion, then I have the same kind of freedoms and I'm going to do. And it's like, well, why would you want to make the same kind of nuisance of yourself? Like, why would you want to stoop to the same kind of tactic to rub their face in it? That's just, it's like basic math. If you're a jerk to other jerks and you claim that you have the right to be a jerk because they were a jerk, then there's just more jerks. It's just a big jerk off sesh. Nothing's kind of made better about the situation,
Right.
So, to me, it just gives a bad image. It gives a bad image of Satanism because people then equate that kind of mentality with Satanism as a whole.
But
Satanism is a very individualistic religion.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of political decisions are something that would be best left to each Satanist. If somebody wants to be an activist, go out and be an activist, but don't try to reduce Satanism to purely activism.
Right. And
especially if it's going to be, that brand of activism.
Right. But though that's social media and that's media. It's the same thing with like the Confederate flag. Like, it's like they automatically, people think that just because somebody has a Confederate flag, they're racist and they, KKK and they're this and they're that. And, I know people that had family members or ancestors that were in the Confederate Army, and that was just a battle flag. You know what I mean? Like it was just a battle flag. It didn't represent them just one thing. But that's what gives that I mean, there are like, I think 13 or 14 different
Right.
Confederate flags, and half of the people don't even know what they are. They only know the one, and it's because of the KKK decided to make that
Mhm.
their symbol. And you know what I mean? And
Right.
there we are. Here we are. That wasn't the Confederate Army's fault that the KKK did that, and it's sad that
Yeah.
people don't learn and educate themselves about history and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I agree with what happened, all them years ago. You know what I mean? That's just the facts. I mean,
Yeah.
um, so, um,
Right.
but it's kind of like the same thing. There's this stigmata behind. I don't. Maybe stigmata is the wrong word, but the stigma behind Satanism, and um,
I think you mean stigma. Yeah.
stigma. Yeah. What did I say? What did I say? What did I say? Stigmata. Oh
Stigmata,
yeah.
like the
But
movie.
yeah. So
Yeah.
there is, and I hope that from this episode that people watch it. A lot of people probably won't because they think that they're just going to keep on blindly believing whatever they want to believe. You know what I mean? Or think it's bad or think it's, but I I'm very happy
Although
that
it
you
would
came.
be interesting for them to ask other viewers. Sorry,
Ask other,
the audio is getting choppy.
sorry, ask other viewers what?
If they, experience anything diabolical or paranormal because they watched the show, if they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to watch it because they're afraid of what might happen, I would say, well, maybe chat your fellow
That's a good
viewers and see if anything happened to them.
Right.
It's like a
Yeah.
little experiment.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting. And that's the thing. Like, it's automatically just poo pooed because it's like, okay, we're not going there. But the same people that are like religious like that, you know, they believe in that Satan. So why wouldn't you want to be educated on it anyway?
Hmm.
Why is it such a bad thing? Because if you are that believe about God, then and the Bible and everything, that you believe in Satan, you believe that it exists,
Right.
and you would have a healthy respect slash fear of it. You know what I mean? To be able to recognize it exists, and I need to learn about it to avoid to do what I
Hmm.
need to not ever come across it. And it goes on and on, as opposed to just
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, I'm not watching that. No way. I already know what that's
Right.
about."
When when I was younger and I was really, starting to get interested in the occult and everything, that was actually how I kind of justified it to myself. Was I would tell myself, or when I was checking books out at the library, and the librarian's kind of giving this like, "Oh my god, we have that book, like, and you're gonna read it," I would kind of say something to the effect of, well, you know, I gotta be familiar with the enemy. I gotta familiarize myself with the enemy so I can, defend myself and stuff.
Right, right.
And that was kind of half true, kind of half bullshit, as a way of just indulging in my interest and having to justify it to people. Uh, uh,
Which
but
sucks.
that kind of willful obtuseness is something that I consider dangerous, and I consider kind of a sad trait to have. And on the one hand, I would love the idea that by reading my articles or listening to episodes of my podcast, some people could change their minds, or maybe change their beliefs in a certain way, or at the very least it clears up misconceptions that
Of
people
Satanism.
have. Um,
Right.
exactly.
That they just recognize
And I
that
don't.
it's just another belief system. If you don't
Mhm.
want to call it a religion, you call it a belief system. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is that, but
Yeah.
it's not what people think it is.
Right. And, I mean, oh, and I probably should have thrown this out at the beginning of the episode, and I'm pretty sure I did not, but I am not a official spokesperson for the Church of Satan. So,
okay.
Everything that I've said, it's just my personal opinion, unless it's a verifiable fact, like a date or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, you did say that.
I know that a lot of Satanists have the mentality of, I don't really care what the herd thinks of me.
Right. Well, I mean, you did say, you said that this is, everybody that follows Satanism, it's their own personal take on, you know what I mean? Like, there's no articles, no documents, no this, no that, you know what I mean? So there's no, it's all in what you believe.
Well,
so you did
that's not entirely. Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, there are, there is the Satanic Bible. There are other books and documents that Anton LaVey put out. There's the Satanic Statements, the Satanic Rules of the Earth. So it's not as though I don't want people to get the idea that Satanism is whatever each Satanist says it is. It's more so taking the philosophy and applying it in your own unique way. So, for example, for me, I lean into a lot of the skepticism and the doubt versus blind dogmatic faith. So I really identify with the idea of Satan as the accuser and the character of Lucifer as a bringer of knowledge. And that's kind of my flavor of Satanism, if you will. But there is a definite literature and definite canon that, you don't have to memorize. It's not like memorizing. You have to familiarize yourself enough with the philosophy. Say, well, I'm a Satanist, and then just go off and do whatever you want, and call that Satanism.
Right. Real quick, plug your podcast and how did I wanted to ask this
the audience.
Oh, darn.
And I apologize because that's 100% my fault. The Wi-Fi in this room is terrible.
No, that's fine. How did you get to be onto Skeptical Inquirer?
So that's kind of a long story. I reached out to Ben Radford because I learned about who he is. I had a couple of his books, and I reached out to him to ask about Gettysburg because I live like half an hour from Gettysburg. I've been to Gettysburg so many times growing up throughout my life. And, I wanted to know about, skeptical takes on the reported ghost phenomena. And he said, well, how about you reach out to Kenny Biddle? He lives in the area. You should talk to him. So this was like 3 years ago. And I started talking with Kenny, and, we kind of just kept talking. And at some point I decided to start my podcast, and I had a couple episodes out, and I just got the idea one day to write an article. There's a page on the Skeptical Inquirer website talking about how you can submit articles. And I kind of just got the idea to do it one day and did it, and they seemed to like it. So I just kept doing it. And it's been about a year since I started writing for them. And, I basically was like, I love what I'm doing. If there's anything else that I can be doing or any other way that I can get involved in the community and helping the organization, please let me know. And they said, okay, how about we give you your own column? We'll call it Devil in the Details. I was like, it's a dream come true. So thank
Wow,
you.
that's awesome. So Devil in the
Yeah.
Details. That's really cool. I love that they're so open to that, and they love that you know what I mean? Like they give you that outlet, to be able
Oh, yeah.
to, to write about it, and I think that's awesome. And
Well,
then,
that was one. Go ahead.
are you still doing your podcast?
I am. I actually just put out an episode recently about uh, the same. So I wrote an article about that devil worshipping neo-Nazi group I mentioned, the Order of Nine Angles. I wrote an article about them, and then I decided to do a podcast episode on it. So I'm very infrequent with when I upload the articles, and that's because initially when I started the podcast, I was just diving so deep into a topic and trying to shove all the information that I could into the episode. And the episodes ended up topping out at like 45 minutes, an hour, a little bit over that. And kind of the more I got involved with writing for Skeptical Inquirer, it became more and more difficult to kind of devote the same amount of time and effort to really exploring those topics. Because, a lot of it too, it's online articles, but it's also in some cases books. So it's seeing if you can find ways to read them online, depending on what it is or how much I enjoy it, buying a copy myself. So that there's just a lot of work, and it's probably more so a matter of just my personal style.
I think it's awesome. What's the name of your podcast?
I always knew that I wasn't material on a set schedule. I know myself well enough to know that's not going to happen. So the podcast is still ongoing. It's just very infrequent. The devil in the details.
So that's the podcast and the column.
When I
I think our connection's getting like. Can you guys still see me or whoever's here? It's probably me. Oh. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. It's okay. It's totally fine.
Is that what you say when it's really not totally fine?
No, I promise you. Like if you go back, I'm telling you, I'm like totally fine with it. It's.
Yeah.
I try to keep my show as relaxed and just I wouldn't have you on if I didn't feel confident in the people that watch, for one, and that people are open-minded and they accept, and it's a very relaxed show. It's very laid back. So shit happens, life happens, internet stuff happens, you know what I mean? So
that's probably the reason why I would never do a live show, is because it's just too. I'm the kind of person, I stress about things way too much. I wouldn't be able to do it.
But that's what I was going to say. Like, I have to put myself on a schedule, or else, it just doesn't work in my life. Like I need to have a schedule. I'm an unmedicated ADD person. So that's like, my boyfriend's like reading articles about ADD and how to deal with me, because, it's but, thank you. I want to thank you again. I've had you for almost 2 hours. I'm sure we could continue to talk about this. It just fascinates me. And I, like I said, I know probably, I don't know, but I hope you weren't kind of worried about coming on, about reaction or anything like that. I'm glad that you came on. I'm glad it wasn't, as soon as I asked you to come on, you're like, absolutely. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, this is awesome. So, um, hopefully in the future you can come on again and we can maybe pick
I'm
a topic.
delighted.
Yeah, we'll pick a topic and we'll just talk about it and see, and see where it goes from there. One more time, just plug your article, plug your podcast, and uh and then we
So,
can say sayonara.
so the podcast is The Devil in the Details. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast. Um, I write for Skeptical Inquirer. You can find it at skepticalinquirer.com. The column's called The Devil in the Details, strangely enough. Or you can just search for my name, JD Sword, SWORD. And I also write for AIPT Comics. I do more pop culture kind of related topics. So, TV shows pertaining to demons or ghosts or movies, movie reviews, things like that.
I was just gonna freaking ask you, like, do you watch the movies, like the right and the all kinds of movies like that to critique them or to write about? Like, do you like those
Um,
movies?
Usually I will be so I've been approached a couple times about writing for movies, and thankfully they were movies that I had seen. Um, I've never. There's only been like a couple times where I watched something specifically because I was like, I have to write about this. Like there were TV shows and those kind of like docudramas that are really big. Um, there was one talking about Fall River, which was a case, a series of murders in the 80s, which allegedly were done by devil worshipping cultists and tied into the Satanic Panic. So I did a review of that series. There was another, it was called like The Demon in the White House, and it was talking about how, Mary Todd Lincoln having seances in the White House opened a portal
Yes.
to hell, and, demons have been influencing presidents ever since. And, that one I also, I saw it and I was like, I have to watch this because I know I can find something to say about it. And it definitely delivered.
So what would you say is your favorite?
Article or like movie?
The movie. Any movies?
Um, any movies at all, or like specifically like possession-y?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Demonic good. Yeah, like it.
Um, Probably the movie Demons by. I'm trying to think if that was Mario Bava or not. Anyway, it's called Demons. It's an Italian horror film from the 80s. It's kind of schlocky, like B movie in the vein of like Evil Dead.
Mm.
So it's not like historically accurate or based on a true story or anything like that. I honestly don't really care for The Exorcist.
I don't either.
I don't find it scary, and I frankly kind of find it boring in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And I really, really think Poltergeist is boring,
Yeah,
which
no,
is,
yeah.
which is insane because I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, and I think Tobe Hooper was an amazing director, and Poltergeist just put me to sleep.
Yeah,
But
I'm not a fan. I say it, I'm not a fan of Exorcist. I think for movies back then, the worst for me was The Entity. That scared the shit out of me.
see, that one I haven't seen, and I probably should because I know Kenny and Ben both wrote about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that I cannot watch alone, nor can I watch in the dark.
I
And it may have been all mine, but still,
mhm.
you know what I mean? Like if it was just her or
Yeah.
whatever, it still is a very scary movie to me. When I say scary, I mean like being a woman and going through that
Yeah.
would mentally like mess me up. You know
Oh,
what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
just insane
Yeah.
to think, that somebody went through that, whether it be in her mind or not in her mind.
Right.
It's just crazy.
But yeah, most like possession-y type films, I don't know. I've just never really, and maybe it's because I wasn't Catholic or I wasn't raised super religious. I've just never really found them scary.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, so like The Right, and I know I already brought it up, but The Right with Anthony Hopkins, like
Mm-hmm.
it's not so much scary to me. It's more I've always been just very intrigued by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe the possibility of, and to me that movie, I love that movie. Whether it's true or not, I love the movie, you know?
I'm consistently disappointed that exorcisms aren't like you see in the movies.
Right.
I've seen a couple like Bob Larson exorcisms, and to me, it's a person, maybe a person that's a little bit stronger than you might assume looking at them, but I don't see turning heads, I don't see levitation. There's no superhuman strength,
Yeah.
and I would love to see that. I mean, I don't want somebody to have to go through that, but
Right, right, right.
I mean, who wouldn't find it interesting to know for a fact that entities like demons exist?
Right. Right. I mean, it's true. Who knows? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like I can't watch movies like that because I think like people like that really exist. Like Wrong Turn,
Mm-hmm.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Nope. Nope.
Texas Chainsaw and House of a Thousand Corpses are like the only movies that I've ever seen that I've consistently like had nightmares about through my life.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something so good about them. And
Like,
Texas Chainsaw or House of a Thousand Corpses is unique in that it's one of the few movies that really, I think, kind of captures just the absolute like batshit craziness of Texas Chainsaw. Because a lot of the other sequels that Toby Hooper wasn't involved in, they really lean hard into kind of the grittiness and the violence.
mm,
And in the first movie, there's like hardly any blood or violence at all.
I don't know, but
It's
that
more so just the utter kind of insanity
fear,
of the people. Yeah,
fear.
that instills the fear. Um,
I agree. The first movie, like like I said, the last one that I watched, and I barely got through it,
mhm.
was the one with Jessica Biel.
uh,
Jessica Biel was in it,
when
and
was that?
at the very end, you thought she was getting away, and he was in the back seat, and he put the chainsaw through the back seat
Yes,
into her.
that
Okay.
I think that was the remake back in like the mid 2000s.
Yep. I didn't eat pizza for a week. I didn't eat soup for 2 weeks. I had like fucking anxiety through the whole thing. I'm like, I can't even watch these movies anymore. Like, I'm going insane. Like, this is crazy.
I think the worst reaction I've ever had to a movie was, and it's an excellent movie. So if anybody hasn't seen it, go out and watch it. It was John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness,
None of her.
starring Sam Neill. Watch it; it's an amazing film.
Wow.
And there's scenes that like lean really heavy into the body horror. So like people's limbs contorting and things like that. And I watched. I had my girlfriend over. So this was like when I was in high school. So this was like 15, 17 years ago.
Mhm.
I had my girlfriend over. We were watching it. She left, and it scared me so bad. I stayed up all night, and, made myself like a pot of coffee so I could stay up all night, and I ended up getting like sick and threw up so bad because coffee's not exactly the most pleasant thing to regurgitate. But I threw up so bad that like I burst all these blood vessels in my eyes. I got no sleep that
Oh my
night.
God.
But I
How
can
long
watch.
did that been?
I mean, I can watch it now. Now
Yeah.
it's great. It's one of my favorite films. But
No, no, I can't. I won't ever watch any Texas Chainsaw Massacres ever again because that one was, and it wasn't, the acting wasn't that good. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it was just the gore and like just I can't even explain. Like it was just so dirty or something. I don't even know how to explain it. It was
well,
just not. It didn't.
yeah. Well, they really, yeah, especially I think with the cinematography, it has a very grimy feel to it. And the
Yeah.
first one has that too. And that's, I don't know, there's just something special about it.
Was that so? There's something there's a scene in a movie, and I couldn't remember if it was the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre or not. But there was a woman on a table, and he was like putting plaster on her face, and then like he put plaster over her mouth, and like the last thing was her nose, and then he clogged the nose up, and I was like, oh my
Was
god.
it are you thinking of House of Wax? The remake for House of Wax?
No, this was from like a long time ago.
No. Hmm.
That wasn't Texas
I don't
Chainsaw
know.
Massacre. Why did I always think that that was the Texas Chain? He wouldn't have did that though. He was like a slasher, right? Like he wasn't like that.
Yeah, no,
So
he was just like putting people on meat hooks and
yeah. Oh
throwing
god.
them in the deep freeze.
Yeah. Um. So now I refuse to watch anything that's would be even remotely be anything like I've never seen the uh what's that one that came out after Saw?
Hostel?
Yes, never saw that.
That's pretty gross.
I hear.
You know, I rewatched that recently, and I have to say, I was really impressed at the one actor uh, playing the victim because it was so convincing. And I feel like very often in horror films, you just don't genuinely believe that these people are in a
Right.
situation where they're
No,
being.
you're yelling at the TV like, dude, where are you going that way for? And stuff like that. Like, there's
Yeah,
no way.
but
Yeah.
like this guy was like, you know, blubbering and whimpering and like was like ugly crying, and it was great. Like I was like, this guy's really good.
Well, that would really fuck me up then. So I'm not gonna watch. Yeah. No, it's like I avoid it. Like all of those type of gory type stuff. Like I love the more, and that's what
Mhm.
I'm saying. Like I like the more ghosty, um, spirity, even the demonic
Yeah.
possession type movies. I'm
Did,
fine with, but it's
did
the
you see that
gore.
Netflix series? Oh, I can't think of it now. Haunting of.
Yes, Hill House.
Yes,
The first one was awesome.
yes. I didn't care for the second one as much. It had some like pretty good scary moments, but the first one was amazing.
Yeah, the first one was great. I loved it. I was so excited for the second one. They also had another one. It wasn't a series. I thought it was a series, but it was a movie. It's called the Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yes, that was good. That
I
was
was like,
really good.
holy shit! Like,
And it really like looked like it was going to be a
like a
rather
ghost. Yeah,
crappy kind of like I thought it looked like it was going to be a really crappy like direct to video kind of film, but no, it was surprisingly good.
I thought that was good. I really did. And then um, what was the other one? Uh, and like even with, and you might disagree with this one, but um what's the show? It's been on for so many seasons. The first season was awesome because it was just this couple in a house with ghosts and whatever. And um, oh my gosh, it's real popular. Everybody watches it, but
American Horror Story.
yes, American Horror Story. I
I
made it
like
through the first 3 seasons, and then after that, it just got too gory for me and
yeah.
weird. I don't know, I just couldn't do it anymore.
I'm trying to think. There was one season in particular that I really really liked. Like I thought it was genuinely scary, and I'm trying to remember now what the hell was going on because it was like a house, like a dilapidated. It was like a house in the middle of nowhere, and this couple moved in, and it was like flipping back and forth between I think like the past and the present, and somehow they factored in this like reality TV show angle. It was one of the later seasons.
Was it? See, I mean, I probably didn't see it then.
Yeah, it's been a good many years. I don't
Yeah,
remember now, but when it came out, I remember watching it, and earlier you had said something about superstition. I'm I think everybody to some extent has some superstition, um, and I think that's something that kind of has to be recognized. I think especially among like the atheist and the skeptic community, there's this idea of, we have to be like perfectly rational, and we should always kind of eschew those unfounded beliefs. And I think to some degree, yes, that's true. But I also think that we have to acknowledge that, we're animals with so much built in, behaviors and belief systems that have been formed as a result of evolution. The superstition and magical kind of thinking is pretty much impossible to root out, I think, completely. And it's not, that's not always a bad thing. That's something that can be exercised in a positive way with creativity and fantasy and things like that. But for as much as I'm an advocate for skepticism and critical thinking and stuff, I'm a superstitious person.
I'm so superstitious.
And I think that there's some degree of like paranoia or whatever that goes along with that, because like I'm the kind of person, I'm terrified of the dark. I cannot be in pitch black like by myself, unless I'm like huddled in a corner or in some kind of way feel safe and secure. I can't walk up the stairs without looking over my shoulder, just because I have such an intense,
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but I think that it's probably close to when they talk about the God helmet experiments. I forget who did those. Again, if Dave Schumacher's in the comments, I'm sure he would know. Persinger, maybe. But the idea that they put this like sensory deprivation helmet on people, and after a while they kind of start to go cuckoo and think that there's.
Yeah, but who wouldn't?
Maybe, sure, and it's something that I think it's a little silly. Yeah, I feel a little embarrassed about it. And
why? I run up the steps every time. I get all freaked out.
But I feel like a hypocrite when I like tell my kid, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. And I hope that there never comes a day where they're like, well, Dad, I saw you. And I'm like, it's totally different. Shut up. It's not the same thing.
But I mean, I think that comes just from, I mean, like I have a fear of drowning. You know what I mean? Where's that come from? I've never drowned before. You know what I mean? Or I have a fear of clowns and dolls and cockroaches. Like, it's like, where does it come from? I mean,
the funny thing about that is I love clowns.
Oh. No.
I
you go to the clown hotel.
I think clown girls are hot. There. I said.
Oh, where's Little Bit? Little Bit was in here. She's a clown girl. Well, she's like she was Little Bit. She's I love her. You see her and her family. They have a page. It's called the Unrights, and they're all like, they dress up like they're clowns, they're haunting actors, like for
yeah.
And their costumes are very scary. I tell them, you win my entire life, because she does this one thing where it looks like her mouth, like how she has it painted on. I mean, it's just freaky, but she's great. I love her.
So I have a couple like advertising posters for the circus, like the Clyde Beatty Circus. I have one like painting, and it's like a Ringling Brothers advertisement, and it says like an army of 50 clowns. And I thought about bringing those into the office that I'm in, and I was going to put them on the wall. And then I was like, well, if there's people in the audience or whatever that like don't, are afraid of clowns, I might not want to have those there. So, and now I'm glad that I didn't, because otherwise you would have had to have stared at big smiling clown faces for the past 2 hours.
Oh God. That's just not, I can't. I'm not like really like, I have a fear of them, but like it's not like, literally my fear of roaches are like way worse. Like I will pass out, and there's just no way.
And that's rational. Those things are nasty little disease carrying.
There's no reason for them. No
No,
reason at all.
they had no value
Nothing.
to the world whatsoever.
They can survive a nuclear blast. There's something wrong. They're little aliens. Get them away from me. They're gross. They multiply with in the millions within seconds. They're just nope, I can't do it. All right, I'm gonna let you go. I could keep on talking to you forever and keep on asking questions, but I've had you for a really long time now, and I feel bad about that. But this was amazing, and I'm so happy that you came on. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared.
Thank you again for having me.
Oh, please, I want to have you again sometime. We'll have to
Sure.
plan another date, and thank your wife for letting you take 2 hours out of your time and coming on, and I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, anytime.
And we will see you when we see you next time. Everybody, please go check out JD. I always say Swords. Do you see how Tom put that up? He said, did you ever see the Saturday Night Live skit with Sean Connery? And Sean Connery he's like, I'll take Swords. So every time I say your name, I always think of that episode.
I love I don't know if I've seen that one, but yeah, I love those Jeopardy.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And then what's his name? Will Ferrell was Trebek, and then
yes.
That's S words. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember. But he's like, that's S words, But every time I say your name, that's what I think of. So when you said JD Swords, I'm like, no, it's Swords.
Well, I'm gonna have to go and try and find that.
Yes, it's great. It's such a good episode. But yeah, so hopefully we will see you again soon. But please, everybody, go check out JD's pages and Skeptical Inquirer and Devil in Details. Correct?
The
Devil in Details.
The details, yeah. I'm happy to say, at least on Apple Podcast, if you type that search in, mine is like the first one that comes up, and
awesome.
It's got a fairly recognizable logo, red background,
sweet
black font on red background, so you can't.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna go on there. I don't know if I maybe I can copy a link and share it to Paranormal Brew, but I'll definitely share your stuff out so people can find it and do whatever.
And if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out, they can reach me on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. If any of my fellow podcasters are watching or have watched, please reach out to JD. Have him on. He's awesome. He's a good interview for sure. Very, very educational.
There's a Devil in the Details specific Facebook page, and then there's also my own personal, which it's probably not that difficult to find. I would only ask if somebody does message me, like, please or if somebody decides to send me a friend request, please send me like a DM first, because I don't generally accept those unless somebody introduces themselves or they're like friends of a friend, because otherwise I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Right. Totally. I'm the same way. But again, thank you so much. And definitely we'll be seeing you. I'll be talking, we'll be chatting, we'll be in the chats, Kenny Biddle's shows, and all them guys. So
are you going to be in Gettysburg on the 19th?
Yeah, are you going?
I am.
And
I took off the whole day so I could just hang around like lot lice at Kenny's booth.
Oh, this is so awesome. Yay. We'll all have to get a picture together. Me, you, Kenny, Tim, and Dave, because Tim and Dave are going to be there too. So
I'll be in the front row because I'm much shorter than everyone else. when I first met Kenny, I was like, whoa.
Really?
Oh yeah. I'm a small guy. I'm like Ronnie James Dio size in terms of like rock stars. Like I'm very short.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm a shorty too. People, when they meet me in person, they're like, oh, you look so much taller. I'm like, really?
See, I would have guessed you were pretty tall. Yeah.
No, 5'3".
I mean, to me, like, really, that's my height.
Yeah, I'm 5'3".
See, I mean, 5'6" to me is tall, and I would have guessed you were probably at least 5'6".
Nope. Everybody's, and I said, why? I don't understand, because when the first person said it, I was like, oh, maybe it's just them. But then it's like all these people kept saying it, and I was like, wow. I was like, I don't know how I make myself look tall, but okay. I mean, I wish I was taller, but I'm
The
not.
modeling industry has searched for years for your secrets.
Right. Right. All right. So we're gonna call it. I've already gone into Chris Chesary's show for 40 minutes. He's probably, but anyway, but it's okay. We had a great time. I love you. I think you're awesome. And
Thank you.
I really, really hope that, for, your cause and your, everything, that people start to listen a little more instead of just blindly, judging, and you know what I mean? And hopefully maybe people watch this and they see that, it's not everything that they thought it was.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Same to you.
And I will be seeing you around.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Good night, JD. Thank you.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
All right. And I'm going to say good night. And for the first time ever, the brew has an outro. And you guys are going to say it. Till next time. Next week I have, let me say, I think I said it earlier, but next week I have, my besties, Pam and Steve Barry, to promote the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. Hope you guys join us.